Welcome to my show about amazing people to know. Creativity is tough, but this is Artsy Fartsy things and stuff. So sit back and chill. Maybe we can all learn a skill. You can never get enough of Artsy Fartsy things and stuff.
Hello. Please forgive the interruptions and the low quality of this production. Everything here is done during the age of the pandemic, and our interviews are done via the internets, and they are problematic. So please forgive the beeps and blurps and stutters and skips and things like that, because it's the best we can do in the pandemic.
Welcome to Artsy Fartsy Things and Stuff, a conversational interview podcast about creative, amazing people doing creative, amazing things and stuff. I truly do hope you all are well out there in the big bad pandemic world. Things here are still largely the same as they were last week. I am still only going out once every other week for the bare necessities, and when I do, I am fully masked up with my hand sanitizer at the ready. It's starting to look like commercial retail will be opening back up in LA over the next couple of months. However, I am still concerned that we don't have enough cleaning supplies and masks to make this a safe option for the general customer, and that we are largely setting up 99% of all small businesses to fail. I'm not sure when or if people will be ready to browse new physical art and design exhibits again. If we cannot get enough foot traffic into the physical retail space for it to generate enough sales to pay the rent, then I'm not sure it's going to continue to make sense to continue with the physical space. But only time will tell. In this all-new episode of the show, we got to chat with the amazing Blake Newhem, an incredibly talented and successful writer who has been diagnosed with a potentially terminal brain tumor, placing a sudden, restrictive, and tragic timeline on how many more words and ideas he'll be able to write. So he created a new inspiring project called A Million Words Away, challenging himself to write 12 novels, equivalent to 1,000,000 words before it's too late. I invite you to hang on for this roller coaster of a conversation as we discuss his incredibly inspiring project, how it's been derailed in the pandemic, and how he's continuing to move forward anyway. We also get into some spirited discussions about the value of art and overcoming fears that threaten to kill the creative spirit. It's now my pleasure to present you with my conversation with the maestro of 1,000,000 words, Monsignor Newhem.
So please tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Hey guys, I am Blake and I'm a writer. I've been a ghostwriter for many years, very successful ghostwriter. Sound a little bit like Trump. Nobody's a better ghostwriter than I am.
Yeah, but in this case, it's real.
A humble, hardworking, behind-the-scenes ghostwriter, and I was a professor for like 17 years in the SUNY system, State University of New York. And then one day, after having gone through cancer in a number of different places, I got a diagnosis of a brain tumor, and that was a real wake-up call. Hello. As it turns out, it was not just an ordinary brain tumor, but a brain tumor that was specifically on the language expression center of my left frontal lobe. So that's no good when you're a writer. And so I had to go through treatments and surgeries and a long recovery. I lost a lot of my speech ability. I ceased being a professor. I went from teaching Chaucer in the original Middle English to not being able to remember the word for cloud. So it was a real frustrating couple of years there. And now that I'm mostly past that, it's a daily struggle, I am back to writing, and I've decided that I've got to live up to the gift of the blessing of my consciousness, to not take my language ability for granted, and to do what I've always wanted to do, which is, while still doing some ghost projects, to put my own books out there. I had published some short stories and other things, and I'd been writing significantly, like a lot of stuff, for many years, but as it turns out, I was never publishing that stuff. So I decided sometime last year that now would be the time to start doing that, and I was 3 months into that when this whole new world arrived. And so we can talk about where plan is now. The answer to that is
absolutely.
not exactly sure, but that's the idea behind the project. There's 3 books already out. The first book was called Healing Star, and this came out in December. And then my second book, The Elephant's Eye, came out in January. And the last book, Two Spirits, just came out in February, except I wasn't able to ship it to anybody because of numerous problems related to the pandemic we're in right now. So I'm not sure exactly where the project is right now.
It's still alive in you because clearly you still have, the energy and the wherewithal to continue moving forward. Now, like the logistics of shipping books and even publishing books and things like that's potentially new territory, but there's always digital media that and downloads, and unfortunately Kindle is a no contact platform. So I think your words will still be able to connect with people moving forward in whatever way we choose, or whatever way ends up working the best for sure.
I hope that's true. The first 2 books are already out on Kindle. The third one's getting a Kindle version soon. And I also thought of late, maybe a couple of the Patreon subscribers recommended that I do an audiobook, which I was planning to do later on down the line, maybe for the 9th book. But it could be that for the 4th book, I have like a little podcast studio, which is basically a closet with some sound barriers. And I could potentially record an entire book there in my own voice and use that as the 4th book. But
it'd be pretty awesome.
Yeah, it would be cool to do that as being forced into that. We're all having to kind of adapt and adjust what used to be normal. But the problem for me is sort of more anxiety based. I started to grow, and this is sort of the no BS version of not like trying to, hey, everything's great and everything's going fine.
Yeah,
please buy my books because and I was getting a lot of great media before all this happened because people thought I was being motivational. So I did TV and I did radio interviews, and on my own show, The Operative Word, which runs on KBC on Sunday nights, I was just basically motivational. I was giving people this kind of idea that, hey, if this guy could do it, I can do it. And don't wait for something terrible like this to happen. Assume the tumor. Assume you've got a limited time left, because life is really a deadline business. And here's a guy who has a almost a literal deadline, and he is taking full advantage and doing the thing he most wants to do. And things were progressing like that for a while. And then even before this happened, sometime in December, I started to get anxious. And I started to feel overwhelmed, which is a really terrible psychological state. And I thought, God, what did I get myself into? And there was too much to do and too much to catch up with. And I started to fall a little bit behind and was somewhat depressed and experiencing sort of post-traumatic stress of life and childhood and all this other stuff. And it didn't come at a good time because I just now publicly committed to get all these books out. And I was a little worried because I spent a few weeks there that were really rough. And then this thing hit. And so the whole world kind of fell in to what my state of mind was, and everything shut down. So all my public appearances shut down, all my selling opportunities shut down. Every time I was going to be in front of an audience shut down, conferences, all of that over. I was doing a regular once a month, a week a month artist in residency at this great, amazing place in DC called the Mansion on O Street, which is also a boutique hotel as well as a museum and an artist colony. And they had to shut down by order of the mayor. So I was no longer able to go there. That's where I was doing my readings. And so everything shut down basically. And I just, and now I'm hugely anxious. And I'm interested to hear what you think. How are you working and how are you producing through anxiety? Are you one of those artists who can put that aside, get into some kind of zone and just work? Or do you need brain space that doesn't allow the room for anxious thoughts?
It's definitely been a roller coaster of processing. And I think it was like the second week during the pandemic, I got a commission gig to do some art for an amazing musician. And
Awesome.
I was able basically just to like hide in that. And because that became my priority, I just worked on that throughout that week. And I'm navigating the pandemic as if I was playing a video game, which enabled me to do things and create habits that aren't natural to myself. So like in the normal world and in the time before the pandemic, I'd wear the same like t-shirt and pants throughout Monday through Thursday because Friday, Saturday, and Sunday I open my gallery. So it's like gotta wear some nice clothes at the gallery,
Yeah.
but I wear the same. But during the week I'm at home working on artwork, and I'm a slob. The regiment that I found that I've been able to creating systems, and like I know my brain tells me that like these are the things that I need to do to get from point A to point B. And I think most humans cap out at a certain point. And as the threat increases, I still am somehow able to just kind of keep rolling with it. And honestly, I think that has a lot to do with playing, post-apocalyptic video games.
Wow.
And things that like put you in that mindset. And it's like I'm not a scientist, but honestly, back in February, I started thinking about what's going to happen if.
Yeah, I was doing that same thing.
Just like running through scenarios. And the news did report that this thing was carried by people that you couldn't tell if they were sick or not. And that was the danger. And so immediately I'm like, we need to be wearing some masks. And then the CDC put out there that we shouldn't be wearing masks.
Yeah.
I'm like, that doesn't make any sense to me. Like my brain was like freaking out because like everybody that I knew was like, oh, you shouldn't wear masks. So it's like they're telling me that I'm crazy for wanting to wear a mask.
Yeah, exactly. I had that same experience.
And I'm like, I don't like how like it's transmitted by breathing on people. Like, why wouldn't I want to wear them? And I totally understand not wanting to hoard the medical masks for the medical professionals who, like, somehow we got into this situation where there wasn't enough stuff for people. Even a friend of mine from China, she was worried about me because she knew that China had bought almost all of America's supply backstock from companies like 3M of masks because they were supplying them to the citizens so that everybody had them, you know? And like over here, we're like, yeah, sure, why not? It's never going to come here. Like, we're fine. And then lo and behold, it came here.
Yeah, at the end of January when that first death happened in America.
Yeah.
After I'd been following, anybody who was paying attention was following what was happening in China, I thought ahead, written some medical books and have worked a lot with doctors, and I have a lot of close sort of contacts who are in the know. But just intuitively, I thought, well, there's no reason why this won't get here. Where it's in 1918 when the massive pandemic happened, which killed 50 million people. It was mainly because of travel. And we had a lot of traveling going on because of World War I, and we have even more going on now. So there's no way anybody was going to escape. And I still believe that's still true of the places that hasn't hit yet. And so my first thought was, typically we have masks. My partner Angel worked at a restaurant, and he wore a mask every day to work. And just we happened to not have any at the time. And I thought, you know what, I really need to get some masks. And then the CD put that warning out. And my first thought was the following. My brother was in Tower 2 of the World Trade Center. The plane hit the first building. He was on the 62nd floor of the second building. Everybody knew that something had happened, but no one knew what it was. He was the safety coordinator for the floor, like the fire marshal. Oh. And they made an announcement over the PA, and this you can see this in some of the documentaries, where they're telling everybody to shelter in place. They're saying, everybody stay where they are. And my brother said, fuck that. There's no way all these people, he worked for Morgan Stanley, there's no way all my people are going to stay in this building, because whatever happened, they didn't know that a plane had hit the other building. They thought it was a bomb. or something. And my brother thought the ventilation systems are connected between these two buildings. So no matter what happened over there, because they were facing a different corner, they just knew it was big and horrible. No matter what happens, it's going to get through our ventilation system. So let's get out. And he immediately, in contraindication to what the officials were saying, said, let's get out. Told all the women to take their high-heeled shoes off. They started rounding people up and they started going downstairs. And he was on the 20th floor when the plane hit his building. So had he been where he was, and that was my first thought about the masks. I was like, they're telling us that, but it makes no sense that the CDC should say don't wear masks because they're worried about the medical community not having them. If the medical community needs them, then why wouldn't we? Right?
So, and I understand that they need them more, like, because we can self-isolate. If we just don't interact with people and we stay in our apartments, we don't need them. But you do if you're going grocery shopping. Like that's but they need them more because we're not in people's faces. But they should have made the clarification about, like, even cloth masks. Like, leave the N95s to the professionals because we're short on them, but make a cloth mask back in early March. It should have happened. At the end of last year, I worked on a sculpture restoration project for a client here in the neighborhood. And I had purchased a small box of 2 masks back, November, I think it was. I didn't even pay attention to what kind of masks they were because I was doing a plaster thing and I just wanted to have a dust mask while I was doing this project. And then I'm thinking, like, when I see I should probably be wearing a mask when I go to the stores, I immediately start digging through my art supplies and I find these 2 old masks, like one for me and one for my girlfriend. And they're fucking 3M N95s.
Wow.
And I'm like, holy shit, I just struck gold. And so I've been wearing, I have been wearing that mask whenever I go out to the grocery store, but then I have to come home and I spray it with alcohol that's disinfectant. And then I hang it in the sun for a few hours. But like those are the only steps that I can take to actually try and deal with it because I can't get another one. But like right now it's an interesting time because they have been so adamant about people not wearing the N95s and only to wear cloth masks. I'm starting, like, when I wear that out to the grocery store, I start getting some really fucking evil stares. Like, it's like I couldn't have even given my mask to a healthcare professional if I wanted to because I'd already worn it before the pandemic.
Right.
So, but like they don't know that, but they're assuming that I got this post the thing, and I'm getting some really weird vibes from people.
Wow.
Like, it's very strange. It's like, but it's like the weird Lord of the Flies part of what we're going through has started already. Like a local grocery store around here, their entire butcher section got looted weeks ago.
Oh my God.
Somebody broke in and stole all their meat overnight.
Yeah, I've had that fear originally too. I told Angel really early on, like at the end of January, we have the zombie apocalypse bag, the earthquake bag.
Yeah, the go bag.
The go bag. I said, let's get all our new medicines in there and it happened that, by the way, there were some vinyl gloves in there, which was good. So that's where our gloves came from. I said, we have to pack this bag. And he said, okay, I trust you. And then he's from Mexico. So he was not aware of how bad things got after Katrina. Uh-huh. But we all saw in Katrina how quickly the combination of a natural disaster and ineffectual leadership can lead to social unrest.
Oh, yeah.
And it was just days. And there's just a thin veneer of civility that we have. And we went out shopping in early March when people first got this message, and people were still making kind of jokes and things, but the stores were like ransacked.
Yeah.
And that was really like, you couldn't get paper towels or anything like that. And that really freaked us out. And I said, yeah, people in like 3 days were on their rooftops with white flags and people were shooting each other and gangs were forming, and it turned into The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
And I'm still afraid that can happen. We're close to that. This could be one of the few cases where maybe it's good to have a strongman dictator asshole in charge because people are too afraid of that happening. But if we have some more areas, especially because it seems to be really disproportionately affecting poor people, African Americans, Latinos, etc., which of course every natural disaster does, and health crises do, because there are segments of the population that are much more predisposed to immuno diseases, and especially respiratory ones. And so this is going to hit some cities hard. And even though there's a lot of information of late about how the curve's flattening and it's all happy talk, that we haven't heard what's happening in Detroit or what's happening in St. Louis, or all those places will get hit hard. Yeah. And I think that it's just a matter of time before there's unrest enough, and we have a president who I have no doubt in my mind would roll tanks in to quell distress and call our citizens enemies of the state, and then you have a civil war.
Yeah,
and I mean, it might seem histrionic and extreme and shrill, but I think that kind of thing could happen still. And so I'm just and when that happens, it happens so quick. Gun sales went up dramatically once this thing started.
The lines at gun shops are almost like the lines at grocery stores.
Right. And the lines at gun shops, but also, I don't know if you've seen lately, like in Texas and other places, the lines at food banks.
Oh yeah, I saw
insane.
That was crazy. Like 10,000 people lined up at the food banks.
Yeah. And we're both blessed because we have roofs over our head, but we're just one step away from that as well.
Oh, absolutely.
I'm really. You have a gallery that's open 3 days a week that was barely breaking even, which is, by the way, an amazing accomplishment. I don't know if people realize that, but that's incredible that you were able to pay that just with regular customers who were, I don't know what the ratio is of new people to regulars, but I think you probably had a combination of those. Yeah. Now that your in-person is completely shut down, and it probably is going to be a long time before people are willing to come back. And in terms of commissioned work, I don't know how quickly people are going to open their pocketbooks again. At the same time that art and music and literature are more and more important during this period of time, and we've seen some amazing adaptability, I think it's going to be a long time before we can recover. I'm fucked. I'm shot. I just within 3 months lost, 90% of all my income. And unless I can figure out how to be resilient and adapt quickly, which I've done before, I've gone through cancer. I'm a survivor. I've done that.
The radio show might be a bit of a saving grace if you can get more sponsors for that.
Yeah, that's the issue with the radio show. I'm really proud to be working at KBC. I'm sitting in the seat that Dr. Drew sat in for years and years, and it's an amazing place. And I think my producer, Cal Saul.
Yeah, Cal's amazing.
Cal's an amazing producer. I've had some great guests. I'm really honored to be able to. The show's about language and words, but of late, of course, all the language and words we've been talking about is this narrative of the disease, and it's a blessing to have that kind of a platform to talk to people. But a little inside baseball and radio, the challenge of that is you have to have sponsors in order to get paid.
Yes.
And that's hard enough to do just in general. And now when companies are closed, when businesses, even the restaurants that are open now in LA, and I think our law now is going to be till May 15th, we're still closed. And then who knows what kind of iterative slowness is going to happen after that. They're still doing business, but they're at pennies on the dollar of what they were making. So nobody's wanting to spend money. And
except for Instacart.
That's true.
We got to get I businesses that have been work from home businesses and online services are thriving. Like the video game industry, thriving. Game companies have been working from home for a decade now. So they're still making video games, and people have more time than ever to play them.
Right.
So it's people writing content for video games locked in for a good long time until
new career for me.
There you go. When things get majorly disrupted, it sucks, especially when we have set up plans for ourselves and we're navigating through these pathways to achieve our goals. have only been building my gallery for a few years. I have no idea what it's going to look like if I get a chance to reopen. I don't know if I'll be able to afford to keep it if I get a chance to reopen. I don't know if customers will even come if we get a chance to reopen. Even people coming to the workshops, that's a pretty hands-on experience.
Yeah.
Like, I think in a post-pandemic world moving forward, like when this particular virus is conquered and we figured it out, and like we have cures or vaccines or when we've squelched this virus as a thing and we've built up immunities to it, I still think that the PTSD that is caused from this experience is going to cause this like yin and yang within people, which is like,
Yep.
they desperately want human contact, but they're also deathly afraid of human contact.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I think it's going to be a while. I'm going to be in that camp that's very afraid. We've had to go out a few times. We have to go out later today because I have to get to the pharmacy because I'm on, 10,000 drugs. And
Can you get online delivery from the pharmacy?
A few of them I can, but some of them I can't. The specialty ones. Or if I can, it needs to be a complicated process of switching over to that. So that's something I have to look into in the future. We have to go out today to the pharmacy. We're going to try to get some supplies if we can. The last 2 times we did it, it was like a Walking Dead, escapade. I'm like totally freaked out. It's going to, I've got multiple underlying conditions. I got a brain tumor. I'm a cancer survivor. I lost my pancreas. I'm a type 1 diabetic. I have Lyme disease. I have asthma. I'm prone to respiratory infections, not necessarily viruses, but when I get a bad respiratory infection, I'm in the hospital because they're worried about my, my breathing. So I can't afford anything to happen. And I'm particularly scared now. I'm scared of getting the virus because I think it would hit me very hard. It would be hard to survive, even though I tend to survive things. 17 surgeries already. I'm particularly worried about other stuff going wrong. So, and for me, it's what if Ollie is the name of my tumor because he's an oligodendroglioma. What if Ollie acts up? He is enmeshed like oatmeal in the rug in the language processing center in my left frontal lobe. There's a lot of other stuff going on there that's affected, and only so much of that am I able to deal with over telemedicine. If there is a change there, that's going to cause me to have to go to an emergency room. And that's the last place I want to be right now. This is the longest I've ever gone without having to go to a doctor. I have crippling headaches. My headaches are terrible. And that's the medicine that I don't get in the mail. I've got, because it's a specialty medicine. So I have to go to this special pharmacy for that. But, if I were to run out of that, that would be also pretty tragic. So it's worth the risk for me to go out and get it as opposed to being in constant pain. So I'm really worried about this. And a lot of this is taking up my brain space and it's taking it away from the creative space. In the past, I could work 18 hours a day for 3 months in a row because I really get in the zone. It's a flow state. And I love that.
Yeah.
And I promised myself when I was in high school, God, not everybody has this. Not everybody has this kind of Olympic feeling. And don't ever take that for granted. Try to organize your life around being able to do that as much as possible. And so I've done that. This is the longest period I've ever gone without being creative because I'm just obsessed with the television. I'm obsessed with social media, which is a terrible place.
There's been a little bit of that I've had to deal with. I think part of doing this podcast is putting me in a different space. Yeah. It's a human contact, it's interaction with peers. Even though we're clearly talking about it now, we're also talking in a creative way, almost like even brainstorming about like what we are going to do, and I think that adds a creative element, like a problem solving element to how we're facing this thing. Now that laundry takes an entire day for me to do, that's a whole day that I can't actually make other things. The stress level of me going to the apartment shared laundry space, having to do like 12 loads of laundry because we're changing clothes every time we come back in from the outside, that is a huge time suck. And then like every time I have to go down there, I have to re-sanitize the whole space. And then I have to worry about if my neighbors are going to accidentally open up the door on me as I'm walking by. I'm wearing my mask. Are they wearing their masks? I don't know. Even grocery day is incredibly stressful. I mean, we finally did Instacart for our last grocery trip. which
I
was
haven't done that
actually,
yet.
it worked quite well. I think it can vary how responsible the delivery driver you get is, as far as like how communicative they are. The app is designed pretty well. You get a little notification when the person starts the shopping process. And like every time you add something to the actual shopping cart, he checks it off the list and you get a little notification. If they don't have the thing that you're looking for, there's several options for like what you can swap it out with. He knocked on the door, just left the groceries in front of the door, and then he took off. And so it wasn't like there was no weirdness about it. It was pretty good. Whether or not that job is worth it for the delivery people, I don't know.
Yeah, there's an ethical question there.
But I do think that if we shift for a few weeks as a society to using a service like that, it still limits the number of people going into the grocery stores.
Right.
So it's like, if it's like, 10 delivery drivers every day delivering groceries to 1,000 people throughout the week, then it's the same 10 people that are going in and out of those grocery stores. So it's less people getting exposed to other people.
Although those people are more likely to be infected.
Right. But they like those same 10 people are just exposing themselves to each other. So it's not spreading anywhere. I'm still just as careful when I clean the groceries.
Yeah.
Like when they come in, I take the bags and I put them on my clean table, and then I carefully remove them out. And then I wash everything or disinfect everything. Like everything gets goes through, the hazmat sanitation process, which is why even when we get delivery, grocery day literally takes the whole day.
Yeah.
It's like last Saturday, I literally washed 32 bottles of water in my sink with soap and water.
You individually washed each bottle of water?
Yes, with soap and water. While I'm in my house, I don't want to have to live in as a heightened state of awareness as I am when I leave the house, right? I want to live inside my house as normally as possible. And the only way that I can reduce the amount of stress is to do everything I possibly can to make sure that there is no virus in the house.
I've lived for the past 30 years in the suburbs in a house with a lot of property in upstate New York. It's only been about 3 years that I've been in LA. This is the first time I've lived in an apartment since the 90s.
Good timing.
And so because we were prone to blizzards and things like that and power outages and hurricanes, everyone had a generator. Everyone had a second fridge, which I desperately wish I had right now.
Every time there's a hurricane, I remember when I was a kid, my mom running the house, putting masking tape all over the windows.
Yeah.
So filling the bathtub up with water,
Yeah. I've done that before too. We've cooked with and flushed the toilet with melted snow and things like that. So this is the other part that's really bugging me now, which is, well, first of all, it's the first time when that happens, when there's a blizzard in your home for 4 or 5 days, it's kind of fun. It's not, you're not locked down. There's not danger outside. It's kind of like you get a collective,
it's going to melt. It's going to melt eventually.
Right. And it's kind of fun and you get a collective break and
you can go play in it.
You can play in it, and when it was beyond fun, like when Superstorm Sandy hit, I've always been a firefighter, a volunteer firefighter, so I was always kind of on the front lines, able to do things for other people, and so it takes the anxiety way down, and you convert that immediately into some kind of service because you need to. Literally, it's all dog work. I mean, you're cutting trees down and directing traffic and only occasional literally saving lives. But this is the first time, because once I got my diagnosis, I couldn't be a firefighter anymore because I can't wear the SCBA. I don't know what to do with myself. I'm not able to serve anybody. I can't, there's only so much going around in my building and knocking on anybody's door and asking if they need anything. Everybody's pretty much taken care of in a building like this. For now. So that's another thing that's contributing to my anxiety. I think I'm not really serving. I'm just kind of a victim of all this. And I don't like that feeling.
There's only a certain amount that we can do before what we're doing then gets in the way of people that are doing.
Exactly.
During 9/11, I experienced, that I was in New York during 9/11 in Brooklyn, right across the East River from the Twin Towers. The people that flooded that area wanting to help, but having zero train, like you had some training at least, but like there is this mentality of people want to help,
Yeah.
but when you're not trained to help, you're then just in the way of people that
Yeah.
are actually doing stuff.
Exactly.
So it's like we definitely need to know when to step back a little bit and let people that are, when they ask for help, then and they have a task that an untrained person can do, then we jump in, or if it's like, when it's time to feed people, like we can help get the groceries or we can cook for people.
We've got to adapt. It's amazing how quickly we do. It's just seems, some of the stuff seems normal. But I agree with you. I think I'm particularly concerned about the physical space. I think I'm one of those people who'd be afraid. I think even if there was an all clear, I would probably keep my distance for a while after that.
But you've been quarantining with your partner, so at least you have that, right?
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about that. We are also doing our own podcast, and yesterday we talked about this. But a lot of my friends who are single are
that is rough.
They are. One of them, who is from Germany, described the situation as being underfucked, and I love that expression.
Yeah, but like forever. Like, yeah. Like, what is dating going to look like in a post-pandemic world?
Exactly. And there was a time, especially in gay circles, where we've been very conscious for a lot of time about safer sex, condoms and so forth. And as a result of that, at least until pretty recently, when this whole new generation of kids came about that don't have any recollection of what the plague was like, as some sexually transmitted diseases started to increase in gay communities, syphilis and gonorrhea and things like that. But up until pretty recently, the numbers were really surprisingly low among us. Mm-hmm. And another one of my friends, an ex, said, "Yeah, I mean, I'm willing to take the risk for myself practicing the safe stuff, but now it can kill my mom." Yeah. So now, like, what do you do?
Layer.
Yeah, there's a whole other layer, and Grindr, which is like the gay equivalent of Tinder, which was very new to me. I was in a long-term relationship and marriage until 3 years ago, and so missed the whole. First, I hadn't been on a date since I was 17 years old when I got together with the guy who eventually became my husband. Yeah. And certainly not online. It was just a total world that I just did not understand. And so I came into this world, moved to West Hollywood of all places for a job, which is like, young, hip, not an ounce of fat. I was 48 years old at the time, so I was completely invisible to all these people. Not used to the whole bar scene, and had to kind of navigate and figure out how I was going to date online. And it was a nightmare place. It was like a high school dodgeball game, but you're naked,
Yeah, it's been so long. I can't even place myself there.
It sucked. And then finally, something clicked. I don't know what it was, because I tried a lot of different techniques. I tried, let's be funny, let's be real, let's be honest, let's be boastful, let's be self-deprecating. I tried everything. So it wasn't about my approach, but something happened at some point about 2 years ago, and all of a sudden something clicked, and I started to meet people. And a lot of people just assume that Grindr is just about sex, and a lot of it is, but I don't know whether the same is true for Tinder, but a lot of people are just talking and hanging out and meeting for lunch and stuff like that. So I had a lot of that and met some good friends, but wasn't having luck. It was sort of like lonely and horny at the same time, which is a terrible place to be. And then finally, it started to work. And a week into that is when I met Angel. And so it was all off the table.
That's good.
But I try to think now about what it would be like to be lonely and horny right now, because we're at least doing this together, and it's only been 2 years, so we're kind of in a honeymoon stage. So it's been nice, and we're not getting on each other's nerves. And it's kind of like, I can't imagine what it would be like to go through this alone.
Yeah. Then there's the whole, if you're in an abusive relationship and now there's nowhere to go, like
total nightmare like, for kids and people and partners of abusers. Yeah.
Yeah. Like the complications that, the layers of PTSD
Right.
that will follow this are just kind of unfathomable at this point. For like, just to consider the scope of the fallout is crazy.
It's
But
tremendous.
that all being said, one of your still stable streams of revenue from your creative output is the Patreon that you've been doing, right?
So the project is called A Million Words Away, and it's 12 books versus one brain tumor. The brain tumor I've already described to you.
Yes, yes.
And 12 books equals 1,000,000 words. So that's the idea. And the plan was to get those done in 12 months. And I still can hit that target, even though we're temporarily slowed down for the past month. The first 3 books, as I said, are all in hard copy. And if you subscribe for a certain amount per month, I think it's the $20 level, you get the hard copy books. And if not, you just get, you get e-versions of them. So this is a great time to read, and a great time to support your local artists, if it's me or if it's someone else. Patreon, I'm new to it. I'm fairly new to it. And I was really uncomfortable even before this all happened, kind of asking people for money. I guess I was devaluing myself.
I ran a Patreon years ago when it first opened up, and it definitely got pushed back. It made people nervous. It's a much more accepted platform currently than it was when I was using it.
This is an opportunity for people to support their local artists. Pick a writer, pick a visual artist, pick a gamer, pick somebody who is in the gig economy, because they are particularly fucked right now, and see what you can do to help support them. And it's all a community, and this is a great time. Everybody's got time on their hands. It's a great time to enjoy art. It's a great time to commission work. It's a great time to read other people's work. So I know that money's tight, but this is literally, in some cases, people's bread and butter. It's not a metaphor at this point. Now it's actually needs to be converted to bread and butter.
Well, let's watch your video real quick and
cool.
Just see the Patreon pitch. This is a video that people will see when they land on your Patreon page.
I have a question for you. What would you do if you were a writer who was about to lose your ability to write? You'd write, right? Hi, my name is Blake, and I'm a successful ghostwriter, which means I have lots of other great people's great books to my credit. But I also have my very own brain tumor, Ollie. And Ollie's sitting right on the part of my brain that allows me to speak and to write. For now, everything is stable, but there's a good chance, in fact, there's an inevitability that Ollie's going to erode my ability to speak and to write. So I have all these amazing stories I need to tell before that happens. And I have an insane idea. I want to get to you all of those stories in the next year. All these ideas, all these characters, all these visions of mine, 12 books in 12 months. Ollie and I are well underway on the first book, Healing Star. It is an historical romance set in the Revolutionary War. The second book, called The Elephant's Eye, which is a family saga. And there's going to be 10 more books after that. Holy shit, that's a lot. All in different formats and different genres, from graphic novel to interactive ebook. I am 1,000,000 words away, and I've got no time to waste. I'm enlisting the help of all kinds of world-class collaborators, translators, photographers, artists. So I hope you'll support me in this mission. It's something that I have to do, but it's something that I really want to do with you. So you can follow this entire adventure on patreon.com/1,000,000words away, on my Facebook page, on Instagram, on Tumblr, on the website, of course, millionwordsaway.com. I promise you that these words will not disappoint. Help me get my life's work out before it's all lost. Again, what would you do if you were a writer who was about to lose your ability to write?
I've really admired your work for a long time, and I appreciate this opportunity to be involved in any way in the kind of adventure that you're on. I was excited to see you open a store. The gallery was super crazy cool. And
it still is. It's just sitting in an empty warehouse now.
Exactly. And that's the shame of it, because it depends on people.
Yeah.
There's a triangle there, the artist and the art, and then the viewer. And the cool part about your gallery is that it's always like you could never have a conversation with you there because people are always showing up, which is the whole idea of it. And everybody wants to engage you, and every engagement kind of takes a while because people are responding and people are. I've kind of admired it because writers don't really necessarily get that. There's an immediacy to what's going on, and then there's a lot of hands-on stuff you do. And I've also noticed that it's every generation. There's 9-year-olds there, and there's 89-year-olds there.
Yeah.
Everybody. Obviously, art is really subjective, but everybody finds something that they really like, and you're able to communicate about it in a way that gets people excited. And then also, there's a community there in the place where everybody's doing something slightly different, but everybody's in the same boat, and everybody kind of gets it. And people are recommending other artists, and I love that whole environment. And so it's a tragedy that this happened right now, just when things were starting to really click. But I know you had an online business. I know you're really creative.
Yeah.
You're always about embracing the weird. This couldn't be weirder. So I expect great things in the future.
In the first 3 weeks, I immediately started making pandemic-inspired artwork.
Love it. I love it. Yeah, I mean, you've always done sort of monsters and freaks and kind of weirdos.
It kind of fits.
Yeah. And eventually you're going to be doing one of the covers for my book.
Absolutely.
One of my books. And we talked about that in a couple of different sessions, and we came up with some really amazing ideas, which we're going to have to revisit now that we probably won't be able to have any kind of human contact for a while. But
I can, I fortunately still have, I have some carving blocks here.
Cool.
And so I've been thinking about your piece. I can design that as a pretty user-friendly stamp that you could put on any surface and photograph it in any way.
Yeah, I like that idea a lot.
So I could mail you a make your own book cover art kit.
That's awesome. One of the things that I'm most excited about this project has been collaborating with other artists. The guy, Gil Nevo, is another LA artist
who I actually just interviewed for this podcast a couple days ago.
Oh, did you really? He's amazing.
Hey, it's fantastic.
He's been really, really producing. Like every day he's putting shit out on social media. It's amazing. And all his work
have you gone to his webinars yet?
No, I haven't done a webinar yet because he does some artist training, and he's the kind of person it'll be kind of cool to be quarantined with because he's got a pretty laid back, relaxed, kind of go with the flow kind of mentality. And he has an awesome studio that he lives in, which is an amazing place.
Which I think you shot that Patreon video in, right?
We shot the Patreon video there, and he did the little drawing of Ollie in my brain. And he also is doing the case for all of the books because eventually they can all wind up in a case.
Yeah.
And working with Brian's been amazing too. And there are a couple of other artists I've been working with. Norman Mallard, who is an artist from Akron. He's a what do you call it? Where you put stuff together from a collage artist.
Yeah.
And he did the cover and 8 individual pieces of art for the inside of this book.
Oh, very cool.
Inspired by the novellas, and they're just amazing. I mean, I love this opportunity, and I think that some things will change in terms of not just the vehicles for art. You've seen all kinds of new things happen in a similar way to the way TV seems to be adapting. I think that all kinds of new things in creativity will start to happen if we can just get over our basic anxiety.
Okay. Even harnessing the anxiety as a tool in some way. Yeah. I think we'll eventually have you move through that. It's like I never saw myself necessarily doing online art workshops, but I totally see it now as kind of a creative challenge. Like how can I teach an art class virtually? I think that the biggest hurdle for me with that is materials. Like, how do I make sure that they have the right stuff to do the things that I want to show them to do?
That is a hurdle.
And it's like, especially if there becomes issues with the postal system and,
one clever way of doing that, if you have enough time to plan, and you can pre-register people, is to have the supplies yourself and then ship them to people. And you can even charge a premium for that. People would be willing to not go to an art store.
Yeah.
And you could send everybody whatever material they needed. It sort of puts an onus on you, but it's another potential revenue stream.
Yeah, it's like the what I'm used to at the gallery is generally like I put up a workshop and people sign up for it like the week before.
Right.
You know, so like the mentality of people wanting to do a creative, fun thing in the next weekend, they usually plan for that just the week before.
Right.
And like, there's not necessarily enough time to get them those materials just the week before.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So it's like I now have to think about like how many weeks is it going to take to get these people the materials that they need so that we can then do the workshop. So how far in advance do these things need to be booked? Or can I, I've been thinking, because I do a number of like sort of collage based workshops with my artwork. So maybe that is like me supplying people with files that they can print out of their own computers.
That's an idea.
And then they, I step them through the process of collaging these things on their own dime, like with materials they have at home. Or
just exactly. Giving them an idea we can advance of the stuff they can collect around their house. In fact, I would sign up for that class because I'm such an admirer of Norman Mallard's work that I love the idea of collage. Yeah. And I think it's the kind of art that I might be able to do. I don't really have any visual art skills, so I couldn't paint or draw necessarily, but pasting things together it makes me nervous, the idea of it, but I think I could possibly do it just with pictures that I like and some stuff I've saved and some materials.
Let me frame it like this. So you're a great writer and you understand composition and writing.
Yeah.
The most difficult part of artwork is not necessarily rendering out a face that is like exactly what the face looks like. It's coming up with a composition and having a composition that is visually exciting and visually balancing. No matter what the marks are, if you have a line in the right place on that one canvas, then that might feel like a real piece of art, right? So it's like understanding visual composition is really the key to unlocking any of the things that you think you might not be capable of doing. And if you can translate the written composition visually and understand why that picture works because, of the rule of thirds, or some base like that, like just translate the thing that you're really good at into a thing that you're not as good at, and all of a sudden like your understanding of that becomes deeper, and so therefore that thing becomes less intimidating to do, and then you realize, I like the technical skills of rendering a drawing or doing painting, understanding how to mix oil paints or using Photoshop. Those technical things are secondary to understanding composition and why the art should be made to begin with.
Yeah.
And if you understand composition and what is what you're trying to communicate with the art, you're a brilliant communicator. You just need to translate your words visually. And I think you have a pretty good understanding of that too, because you and I have talked about visual communication and visual language and with your book covers, and you have a pretty strong vision of some things. Like you just need a deeper understanding of why some of those visuals work better than others, and there are some basic, pro tips, like the rule of thirds and sort of visual balance and a little bit of color theory, like those base things. Once you get your brain wrapped around that, then you just can go to town. What people get hung up in is the technical aspect of a thing. It's like you put paints on there. They're like, what do I do with those paints? Or you open up Photoshop to like, what do I do with this? Like this, I don't understand these tools.
Yeah.
Which a collage is a nice way to step into that because it takes away some of those hurdles. And it gives you here are my tools. These are things that I have in front of me that I can push around on a canvas or a piece of paper, and I can push it up there. Does it make me happy? not really. Let me move it over here. To make that, for some reason, I don't know why, it looks better in this corner of
Yep.
the canvas.
Yep.
And then I put another thing. This purple, does it look cool next to this orange? You know, so like you're just almost like stepping your way through color theory, not even understanding why it's working yet, but just that it makes you feel better when you put this there.
Yeah.
You know, and most of us instinctually understand that, like when you hear music that has like, you know, an off note, we immediately all feel the off note in that music. It's like, and you're like, ah, you know, they were like, what just happened there? We immediately feel that it didn't work. Or if you see like you can just be driving by on the interstate and see a billboard with a really terrible piece of artwork on there. And you're really like, that sucks. I don't know why it sucks, but that's a terrible image. Like you understand when you don't like something.
Yeah.
And then you understand when you do like something.
That's why I'm particularly interested in collage, because it's very similar. Your metaphor about the tools all being in front of you, I like. But it's similar to writing because it's the barrage of information that comes in these bites of various colors and sizes that we get attacked with every day, that the collage artist has to sort of pick and choose from amid all of the noise. They're focusing on certain things, and then they're reconstructing them kind of microcosmically to create this image of their universe that comes from all the information. And I like that idea. So I've picked a couple of things. There's pictures that I like, and a couple of different colors that I like, and a few textures that I like. And I like the idea of trying. I've never done it before. I haven't used this kind of thing since I was in, second grade in art class, where you weren't worried about judgment. You were just like putting shit together and, gluing things.
I mean, that's also important, I think, is as a creative person, like when you were first starting off writing, there was a certain amount of like, you had to not be afraid to write shitty stuff while you got better at at putting better and better words together.
Yeah, exactly.
Like the same goes for a visual art. You got to not be afraid to make terrible things for a while until suddenly those things start looking awesome. Right. And you're like, man, that looks freaking awesome. But it's like 99% of the time, somebody's not going to be born with the ability to make something awesome. Like there are people that are born with the ability to render a photorealistic face. And you're like, why? How did that kid how did they understand how to make a photorealistic face? But that is also an interesting skill, but it doesn't necessarily make that photorealistic drawing of a face art, right? It makes really good talent that somebody is born with, a really good technical skill. But the composition could be nothing. It could communicate zero. So I think your level of narrative communication will automatically inform any visual things that you start putting together, and they will start to tell a story because it's second nature to you to tell a story. You can't even have a conversation in normal life without a interesting, compelling story coming out of your face.
And a piece of visual art is necessarily telling a story?
I think any good art is telling a story, is absolutely telling stories. Whether that artist was able to communicate that story, whether that story is more emotional, it could be the story of a feeling, there is a legitimate science to color theory. So if you're looking at a piece of abstract art that is just blobs of color, but you're experiencing some form of emotion from that, that's a story that's being told by that artist. It's like Jackson Pollock put marks on his canvases that seemed random, but were entirely intentional. Like the things that he was composing in there were things that were composed by a person who had been composing things for a really long time. And he understood why each mark was being placed there. He understood the specific angle or direction of the splatter that he was going to be putting on these canvases. It wasn't random in any way. And that's why his pieces communicate to so many people. And like we remember his work, forever, because he was telling really good stories, in the same way that, Shakespeare put together amazing words that people will remember forever. Like
Yeah.
master artists put together amazing marks that somehow tell stories, and those can be photorealistic or they can be Guernica. And Guernica is a masterful piece of art that if you've ever seen it in your life, you'll never forget it.
Yeah.
And that's
I have a generally negative reaction to quote unquote modern art. So the proverbial dot on the page that's on the wall that people are all going.
Okay.
But what you're saying, I don't like pretentious bullshit.
Sure.
And I don't like it if it's fucking with me, right?
Okay.
But if it's a Rothko piece, which are basically just shapes, right? Those are moving. They do something. You're just compelled to look at them. Or the more abstract Richter pieces that are similar. I've been blessed enough to have been in a couple of offices where people own originals of those, and they're just, you could stare at them forever. So there's somebody has decided to put stuff where they've decided to put it in a certain structure with certain layering and certain colors, and I admire that, and I think for now it could be a good way of getting some anxiety down as well. I could also go crazy and throw stuff across the wall, which is why I don't make models or anything like that. But I think I think I might want to try it. I'm gonna.
Another thing you could start with is coloring. I could send you some coloring pages, and you could, like, once you get your ink, you can print them out and just color. And coloring a composition that's already there will help get your understanding of color theory, and you'll start playing with colors and like putting this in here, and that is a very Zen experience,
like those adult coloring book,
exactly,
or paint by numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
like that is a good place to get your brain thinking creatively and visually, like where you're not worried about the composition again. You're just concerning yourself with like, what colors make me happiest when I put them where,
right?
And like that's going to the emotional connection with you and colors, and there are legitimate, neurolinguistics programming is based around color theory. Like the reason most fast food chains are red and orange is because those colors make you hungry.
Wow.
Like they trigger like legitimate things within us that, like, your mouth will start salivating at certain oranges and reds. Like,
I've been to galleries galore where I've just been mesmerized by something cool that I haven't seen before, especially new genres and new types and new forms, and especially this new digital kind of thing that's going on where you can do amazing stuff that is dynamic and novel in the moment, so that it's constantly changing. I love that kind of stuff. But you pretentiously put a dot on a piece of paper and put that on a wall, and museum curators are talking about it. No.
Well,
I don't like it.
I agree that there is a lot. I mean, there's definitely a lot of pretentiousness in the, quote unquote, higher art worlds. And I think that is the same level of pretentiousness that is infused in with like manufactured pop music. When people are applying value to something, not because of what it means or what it communicates, but because of a social status, or because it's some sort of business transaction, or like somebody just deems this thing has value, then I think we're balancing in the line of pretentiousness. Because like I've been to gallery openings for sure in New York where I walk into the room and I immediately hate everything that I see, yet there are celebrities there drooling over it. And when I see that, as turned off to it as I am, that dude did sell and did create a ridiculous amount of value in his work. So I look at that and I'm like, while I do have an internal struggle of like, fuck that guy, I'm also like, what he did is working. How can I take some of that and then learn from that and understand that so I can then do it with integrity?
Yeah, that's a good way. There's an equivalent in writing. It's the same thing. I don't want to write like Dan Brown, but I appreciate very much what he's done, and it's obviously working, right?
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with anything that I admire or respect or aspire to. But who the fuck am I, right? And look at him. He's achieved something great. So there's a difference between quality and taste.
Yeah.
Which sounds pretentious, but somewhere in between there, you're not really. So I'm writing what I think are much better books, but nobody's reading them, and everybody's reading the likes of Dan Brown. So what do? There's a dilemma there. Do I die the starving artist, or do I somehow adapt to what I think of as the possible marketplace? I've refused to do that, and I'm 51 at this point, and it's unlikely I'm ever going to do that, to adapt to what I think the market is looking for. But but at what cost? Like, if I have so few readers, I need to do what makes me, what satisfies me and what my quest is, even if nobody understands it or gets it or reads it. And that's a constant struggle, but to me, that's worth it. I don't want to give up what I value for something else that I think might sell better. And I've gotten into a lot of different conversations, especially when I'm collaborating with people, because I tend to collaborate with people who are much more marketable. And it's not that I don't admire that. I respect it a lot. And I'm not saying it's easy to do. I'm saying that it doesn't feel right to me. It's not what makes me comfortable as an artist.
I look at some artists, and I'll throw the example out there of David Lynch. Now, David Lynch is I highly admire what he's achieved, because he's a guy that has made a career out of making incredibly weird shit, right? Telling very bizarre stories and making very bizarre music and very bizarre artwork. But he has made a few movies that have hit some pretty mainstream success.
Yeah, Kubrick is similar.
Yeah.
There.
So there is a balance of the path that these guys have taken, the trajectory that they've taken, where they have not really compromised their visions, but they have done things that have gone mainstream. And I think oftentimes strategically so. They understand that these pieces are going to go mainstream, so they can then do other things, their other visions of what they want to do.
Those are great models. But what if Kubrick or David Lynch early on had said, I'm just going to make Heart to Hearts, or Gilligan's Island.
For sure.
Right. And so they stuck with their guns and they found a following eventually. It's the same with really cool bands that don't, in fact, when they do go mainstream, people stop liking them as much. But you've got to feel the integrity. It sounds pretentious, but you've got to feel your own integrity and stick with that, even if the risk of that is that it never takes off. The difference between those people and me is that they're also heavily marketing their stuff. So you have to also have the confidence to try to sell yourself and get it out there, because it doesn't happen by osmosis. It's not like people are going to just recognize your genius at any point. You've got to grind in the business part of it, and that's really hard. And it's a different skill set completely than the art.
Well, so, on that note, I do recognize that you are a genius, and I look forward to our continuing our collaboration. How do people connect with you? If they are you still doing ghostwriting for people, or are you mostly focused on your own stuff?
Yes, as a matter of fact, now more than ever, I've got free time. I've got time to be able to commit to ghost projects because several have wrapped up. I'm only working on a few at the moment. It's the main way I make my living. and I'm happy. I'm called The Ghost of the Future, and you can find me at theghostofthefuture.com. The A Million Words Away project, which is the 12 books in 12 months versus one brain tumor, is at amillionwordsaway.com. And if you've got it in your heart and your pocketbook right now to support me, I will send you some great work. I won't let you down if you go to patreon.com/A Million Words Away.
Awesome, man. Well, it was a great conversation. Thanks for hanging out with me.
Thrilling.
And I will see you in the future before you're a ghost. I promise.
Stay well, stay healthy, and stay home, everybody.
Okay, all my beautiful creatives of the Weirdo Persuasion, that's all the talky talk we have for today. Just to reiterate, you can learn more about Blake and his work at ghostofthefuture.com, amillionwordsaway.com, and of course, his fundraising community at patreon.com/amillionwordsaway. If you can, please be sure to help support your favorite creatives today so they can continue to create. If you can't financially support, sharing their work on your social media, telling your friends, and generally spreading the good word for them is great as well. If you are a creative, amazing weirdo who wants to be on our show, or you know a creative, amazing person that you think needs to be on our show so we can continue talking about creative, amazing things and stuff, please reach out and let me know. Drop a comment, DM me. Let's make it happen. As always, if you dig what you heard and saw, please consider subscribing to us on YouTube and all the major podcast networks. Like our Facebook page, follow us on Instagram, on Twitter, and support us on Patreon at patreon.com/Artsy Fartsy Show. That's it for now. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay weird, and stay awesome. Catch you in the next episode.
This show is brought to you by Embrace the Weird, a lifestyle brand for weirdos. From original crazy t-shirt designs to handmade eccentric earrings, they have everything you need to embrace your inner weirdo. Please visit embracetheweird.design for more.
Support this show at Patreon. Please support this show and buy some merch. Please support this show on Patreon. Please support this show.